the more Germany doesn't like address any of the problems with austerity politics, the more the far right is going to gain ground. The more the far right is normalized through Germany's insistent support on Israel as well. We might just see, Nazi Germany 2, AFD Boogaloo. All right. It's been like more than 2/3 of the time that I'm streaming. I think I should get to the thing that's in the title of the stream now. And that is the directly like politics related thing of the day. I mean, I guess housing policy is also politics and stuff, but this is elections, electoral politics, which I, am obligated to cringe at because I'm a socialist and, electoral politics are cringe sometimes, but at the same time they are important for well, I think for kind of obvious reasons. Regardless, Hoglins eat you into lava. Those can suck. Honestly, if we're talking about how annoying they are, Hoglins are more so than Piglin brutes. That's probably true, yeah. But anyways, the elections in Germany. German federal elections have not happened yet, I think. They have yet to occur. But I think you actually mentioned in 1v3 that there were some regional German elections coming up where the AFD, the German neo-Nazi party, gained quite a bit of ground. The elections, oh baby, yeah, true. Who amongst us does not enjoy a good segment about electoral politics? In the state of Thuringia, Thüringen, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I know that's like kind of how it is in German. They had the elections for that state, and I think that's not too far from Berlin if I'm remembering like geography stuff correctly. But anyways, the far right party unfortunately won in a blowout victory. In terms of like who got the most vote share. If I look at this electoral map here, from Europe Elects and from Stats for Lefties, I have both of these up. De Linke, the left party, which was previously the most represented party, with 34%, I think that says. No, 31%. 31% of the vote in the 2019 elections dropped to just 12% of the vote this time. Meanwhile, the AFD went from 23% of the vote last election to 30% this time. So they are now the single largest party in the state of Thuringen, in Thuringia. I'm just going to say Thuringia. And then the second largest is the CDU. That's the Christian Democrats. Basically just the far right, but like kind of not. They're the center right party, but they pal around with the far right a lot. Which went from 22% to like 24.5%. SPD lost a little bit of support, but they didn't have much to begin with, from 8% down to 7%. Green lost support from 5% down to 4%. FDP, which is the Liberal Party, lost support from 5% down to 1%. And BSW is a new party, another far-right party, that has 16% of the vote. That got 16% of the vote this election. Those are the vote totals. I just kind of read those out. I'm sure if this is a segment, I'll show the vote chart that I'm referring to. Where all the vote totals are compared to last election. But I want to talk about like what this kind of represents. Like why am I talking about this? Because you can be damn sure that I don't talk about state elections in the United States, right? That's because I think like this is not good. It has some significant implications for the rest of Germany, and there's something I want to say specifically about East Germany for this as well, because I know that Thuringia is in East Germany, what used to be the GDR or whatever. Communist East Germany, Communism, Vuvuzela, that Germany, that one. So obviously the far right is gaining ground in Germany. They have been for a while. There's no indication to believe that they won't continue to. And of course, now that there's a, in addition to the AfD, which is just, Nazis, ultranationalists and stuff, now you also have the BSW, which is a Nazbol party. They're sort of like the sort of red-brown alliance type of people, where they're like, oh yeah, we believe in social conservatism but economic populism, which means they're actually probably more like the Nazis than the AfD is. Because the AfD only does the nationalism bit. The BSW is, I think, still trying to appeal to the, like, pretend populism part of it. Or like, the economic part of it, that is to say. The implications of this, like I said, far right is gaining ground. They will likely continue to, because in Germany, the left, the Die Linke is kind of a joke. The Green Party is a joke. The Social Democratic Party is a centrist party. There's no real left, like, there's no real representation of left-of-center policy prescriptions, because that would start to threaten the bottom line of liberal capitalism. And the reason that these fascist parties are able to take advantage of that is because there's no counter-narrative from the left at an institutional level. In the most literal sense, this is capitalism in decay. You will sometimes, if you're in lefty circles ever, you will hear the phrase, fascism is capitalism in decay. That is exactly what's happening here, and that's where East Germany comes in. East Germany, everybody knows, was much poorer on average than West Germany in the sort of Cold War period. Right? And with the unification of Germany in the late 80s, I think the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. So with the reunification of Germany in 1989, 1990, everybody thought, oh, this is great. Germany's going to be reunified. The problem's going to be solved, right? That's not what ended up happening. Because the West Germans were really fucking snooty libs, or a lot of the, the parties that represented West Germany were a lot of snooty libs and, like, reactionaries. They hated, there was a lot of leftover Cold War campism where West Germany fucking hated East Germany. They thought they were way worse than them. Basically, think about how like, some European countries will think of migrants, about how, like, more reactionary liberal types will talk about immigrants being, like, I don't know, trash, and how, like, the native-born nationals are better or whatever. That's kind of the attitude, like, that's analogous to the attitude that existed between West Germany and East Germany. They hated each other, and East Germany viewed West Germany as, like, basically an oppressor state. They weren't wrong to do so, right? Because West Germany definitely underinvested in East Germany to a massive degree, right? Part of that was because of, like, the leftover social disdain, but a lot of it was also because it was just more profitable to keep investing in West Germany. This is part of how capitalism creates inequalities, is that, like, the preference goes to where the wealth already is, because that's where the wealth is going to be. That's where more wealth can get generated, exponentially so. The gap between East Germany and West Germany, however much it's close, has never really been addressed. That disparity has always remained. Capitalism has failed the people of Eastern Germany, right? Suffice it to say, in a broad sense, right? You can look at an income map. You can look at, like, an income and wealth map, like an inequality map of Germany based on, like, city or county, and it lines up almost perfectly with the former boundaries of East and West Germany, even down to the neighborhoods in Berlin. So people in East Germany had a lot of anger, a lot of unresolved anger. And they were looking for a place to put it politically. Or rather, East Germany, as like a political entity, was looking for a place to put that anger, right? And capitalism had failed them. What they perceived to be socialism had failed them. So they decided to try a third way. Third positionism mentioned when people, like when capitalism is in decay and people don't go to socialism, they go to fascism. When you can't appeal to the rising tide lifting all boats, because it hasn't been in East Germany, what do you appeal to? The nation, the state, the Volk. This is exactly the strategy that Hitler used in the 1920s and 30s. That's why it was so successful back then, and that's why it's so successful now. The same problems inherent to capitalism exist now as existed in the 1920s and 30s, and it is becoming relevant in the same fucking place again, in Germany. You know? History doesn't repeat itself, but it does often rhyme. So that's I think what we're seeing reflected in this state election. And I know that's a lot for me to take from us, what would mostly be considered a single data point. First of all, it's 2 data points, get wrecked, because there's another election. But then also, it's more than just the one state compared between 2019 and now. It is that state, as well as the rest of Germany, compared between now and I think the past, God, when was the AfD, like, when did they become relevant? It was something. It was about the time that the Syrian refugee crisis started, when a lot more migrants started coming to Europe, right? Because for sure it's hard to handle a lot of migrants, but then also like it gave reactionaries an excuse, and it revealed a lot of the economic tension that was already there. That's so real. But yeah, the sort of the unresolved problems of capitalism will lead people to a place of profound despair and anger. We've seen this in a lot of European countries where austerity fucking hollowed out economies. At best, it sort of left people on more uneven footing, right? In a country like France or Sweden, austerity politics hit hard, but ultimately those countries still have like pretty well-functioning civil society, strong unions, whatever. Like life is still all right there. But for other countries like Britain, austerity destroyed them. And you have varying degrees in between. And that creates a lot of despair and anger among people. And when the sort of capitalist system is very intent on maintaining itself, as all systems are, it will try to redirect and absorb critiques whenever possible, mostly through mass media, that being a new invention of the 20th and 21st centuries. So that critique, that anger, that despair generated by austerity politics and an economic system that fundamentally beats down the working class, that hollows out civil society, that channels wealth upwards and makes people's lives absolute shit, that gets absorbed and redirected. News outlets and politicians and pundits who are very friendly with a lot of business people, and in fact, those business people themselves sometimes will go and say, okay, shit, what do we deflect people to? I know, migrants. Very easy issue. People have a lot of irrational tendencies, reactionism, etc. And so, the sort of anti-migrant sentiment and the anti-Semitism and whatever else, the xenophobia, becomes at the behest of really fucking rich, like, business owners, the stupid man's anti-capitalism. So people get to have something to feel angry about. People start galvanizing as like part of a political movement, and the business people get to keep sitting comfortable because they know that they've just misdirected the entire population into talking about something that will not fix anything. Also, Delibre, thank you very much for the follow. And we're watching that happen right now. To put it in a very simple recap, with Germany as an example, East Germany was hollowed out by their time in the Warsaw Pact, and then they reintegrated with the rest of Germany. They failed to fix that problem because of the perverse incentives created by free market capitalism. And as a result, they're now fucking pissed. And they're looking for some place to put it. And they found immigrants as a very convenient place, because all the business people want to still keep doing business the way they have. Anyways. Yeah, through the entrenchment of the far right in German society, in German government too. Do the friends carry over or no? They do. If you have the same friend codes, the friends carry over. And as Germany, like, the more Germany doesn't like address any of the problems in a like with austerity politics, the more the far right is going to gain ground. The more the far right is normalized through Germany's insistent support on Israel as well. We might just see, Nazi Germany 2, AFD Boogaloo. Honestly, I don't know why people care so much about immigrants. Everyone living here is an immigrant unless you're native. True. Well, that's, in America, there's like we're the biggest in the EU. Yes, Hungary. No, of course not. It's Germany. Yeah, that's true. In fact, it's economically irrational. The anti-immigrant hatred is a fundamentally irrational thing. You can look at economic charts and statistics about economic growth, the creation of wealth, and all sorts of like quality of life metrics. Immigrants are a huge benefit to the societies towards which they immigrate. Migrants in Germany, huge benefit to German society, huge benefit to the German economy. Migrants in America, huge benefit to American society and the economy, right? This is the case for any country where people move in, because those people are fully grown, for in large part, they're fully grown people that you don't have to go through the full trouble of raising from childbirth. They're in a lot of cases, they're ready to work. They don't need as much education. It's like a cheat code, honestly, for like way easier labor, right? And of course, obviously, a lot of businesses exploit them by paying them way lower wages than they're technically allowed to do, and they just hold the threat of deportation over their heads. But they're also, because they have so little representation in media, in government, because they are so on the margins of society, they represent a very easy target. Because also in a lot of cases that they haven't fully integrated yet. They're kind of, you can still kind of tell. Right? Does that make sense? So, when news media outlets that are owned privately or whatever are starting to sort of feel the heat, when they're looking out for their bottom line and stuff like that, when business people are like, I don't like all these left-wing protests or whatever, like, whenever the calls come for like economically progressive policy making, for things that would threaten the profit margins, for things that might lead to, workers having higher wages, getting more benefits, having more representation on the corporate board, they turn up the anti-immigrant rhetoric. And in fact, they're just doing that constantly as a way to sort of try to prevent people from like reaching that point of realizing their interests in the first place. Although for the layperson, a lot of hating immigrants is just about perceived cuckoldry. As dumb as that sounds. Because that's for the most part, that's how it's marketed to people. Like, they're gonna come here and fuck your women or whatever. The biggest party in the EU is also the biggest party in Germany, but I doubt the rest of the EU, besides Hungary, will like far-right Germans in the EU pulling the strings. They probably won't, but the EU, the only thing that the EU can really do is decide to give $1 squidrillion to farmers anyways. The EU can't do a ton. Although I guess the EU could do a lot of damage when it comes to migrants and stuff. Like, seriously, if you think the United States has some bad anti-immigrant politics, holy cow, you do not know what's going on in Europe. Like, in the United States, we'll sort of, we'll create conditions that would lead to migrants disproportionately dying. In Europe, they'll straight up kill them themselves. Like the border guards in Europe will go on patrol boats in the Mediterranean and like watch boats full of migrants capsize and then just let them all drown at sea. Fucking inhuman behavior. But the nationalism runs deep in Europe. Funnily enough, it's possible that the nationalism can get in the way of the far right and their political objectives. It's not super likely because the far right movement is very international. Far right people in one country versus another will sound basically the same. But it is possible that through a lot of Europeans just really hating Germans, then the German far right will have a limited ability to act in the EU Parliament, which would be very funny. So that's the outcome I want to see happen. Yeah, this guy who knows European politics better than me says that there's some friction between AfD and BSW, even though they're both far-right parties. Guys, remember, far-right parties fucking hate each other because they're all idiots. You know, fascism is international, it's funded by capital, but that doesn't stop the far-right from all hating each other for various different reasons. So it's probably you're going to get a AfD and CDU in a coalition government in Thuringia. Oh, that's so true. Yeah, it is. It is so real. I mean, like, you know, take it from me, take it from 1v3. Just look at the Netherlands. The tendency of far-right parties to fucking fight with each other constantly has saved the Netherlands' ass on, like, 3 or 4 occasions at this point. Because there keep being new far-right parties that get elected to the government, and they keep hating each other. And they keep not getting anything done and, like, letting the government collapse because they all hate each other so much. It's really funny. To me, anyways. Yeah, competitive fascism. This is why, like, as much as obviously I'll disagree with Destiny on a lot of shit, this is why something that Destiny said will, like, always stick with me, which is that the, you know, lefty infighting on the left is mostly contained to, like, Twitter online, right? Like, that's mostly where that stuff lives. But then you take a look at infighting on the right, and they're doing it in the halls of power, in government. Like, the right tears themselves apart at an institutional level. You know, the infighting on the right is so much more consequential than the infighting on the left, you know? It's a big hiccup, you know, it can cause some pretty big hiccups in political movements on the left as well, but it's mostly at the grassroots level that all that stuff happens. You know? Meanwhile, fucking right-wing parties will get into parliament and then spend all of their time in parliament, like, talking shit about the other fascist parties in parliament and, like, getting nothing done. Which is great for us, you know? So I guess that's the, that's like the silver lining, is that fascist parties hate each other. The worrying bit is that because the fascists are coalition building with the right, the center right, what is nominally the center right, funnily enough, liberals will have better chemistry with fascists than other fascists, right? Fascist parties constantly at each other's throat. Liberal parties, in Europe especially, but also in the United States, liberal parties will fucking trip over themselves to make concessions to fascists. The only way that fascists can get anything done is if their partners are liberals. Because even though there's a theoretical ideological opposition, liberals are so civility-pilled that it's so easy to just say, like, hey, if you really care, you should make concessions to us here. And the liberals will just do it instantly, no discussion. Sometimes you don't even need to do that much. Just look at the way Macron behaves in France. You know? Depending on how much liberals hate the left.